Okay, so we are live. Nice to meet you. My name's Blaze, Dr. Bourgeois on campus. I too am a graduate of University of St. Augustine from the Austin campus. This is actually my first time being part of a meeting that we've had for the BEPP SIG as the faculty liaison. So I kind of took over Dr. Field's spot. So I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to see you here. Thanks for joining us.
No, I appreciate it. Just curious, what is for you guys like the ultimate goal with the group, and what are you trying to accomplish? Just because it'll help with positioning and communication app.
Yeah, so my first question for you was, did you have anything like to present, or we have questions that we just like to ask you about
Oh,
kind
I've
of
got
your.
a slide deck. Yeah, I've got a slide deck ready.
Okay, well, I think that's what we'll do is we'll let you kind of go ahead and present to us, and if we have time and you don't mind, we'll have some follow-up questions afterward.
Awesome. All right, I got it. Let's do. This is my first time using this, so let me know. Can you guys see my screen? I can't see you guys.
Yes,
Thumbs up if you can see my
Yeah,
screen.
yeah, we can see it.
we can.
Perfect. All right, guys. Let's see. Can you still see my screen?
Yes. No.
Yeah, it went away.
It went away. Gotcha. Okay. Sorry, first time on this. This
It's
is.
okay. No worries.
I might be able to share my entire screen. Does this work?
No, not yet. Can see it now though.
Perfect. I just can't see your faces, but if you guys have any questions, just let me know, and then we'll go from there.
Sounds good.
It's also not let me. Gotcha. And you guys right now just see the slide, right? Do you see like the tabs or anything above?
Just a slide.
Perfect. All right, let's get after it. So, private practice and entrepreneurship as a physical therapist. Took a look at the Instagram, and you guys have had some great people on here. So hopefully, maybe it's a refresher on some things, maybe it's some new stuff. But I just want to be able to provide my perspective. I don't think I'm unique by any chance. Got some things that are particularly interesting, but we'll go into that. So today's goals discuss the journey of how I got into starting a practice and the lessons I've learned along the way, so I can save you some time, headaches, and money. So overview, we're just going to go through an introduction of myself really briefly, levels of leverage, creating a proof of concept, initial hiccups, lessons learned, marketing 101, sales 101, operations 101, minimum viable product, and then Q&A. So I always kind of give this caveat. I've been a part of like 10 mastermind groups. I've spent over 200K on learning on top of my tuition, and I have more books than my 700 square foot apartment can hold. I don't have all of the answers, but I've got a decent amount of experience. I'll continue to make mistakes. My opinions and perspectives will continue to evolve. So if you're watching this, and maybe it's like next year or 2 years, don't hold me to these things. Some of this stuff might not be useful. Some of this stuff might be useful. Take what you like, and just like Bruce Lee says, discard the rest. So a little bit about me. I got my bachelor's of psychology from the University of Buffalo, doctor of physical therapy from University of St. Augustine in the Miami campus. I'm the co-founder of Moment Physical Therapy and Performance with my lovely wife, Dr. Christy Fata, and we have built the practice to 4 providers in under 3 years. We're completely out of network, so just cash. Founder of Moment Education. I mentor over 200 coaches and clinicians, and I'm the father to Oliver the Puggo, which is my little guy over there. He's a half beagle, half pug. In terms of entrepreneurship, I've kind of been doing this, I don't want to say my whole life. I don't even like to call myself an entrepreneur. I just kind of grew up in a pretty blue collar family. We didn't have a lot of money, and I would run through my sneakers super quickly. So my parents would buy us 1 pair of sneakers per year, but since you're playing around in the streets with your friends, I would run through that pair of sneakers within 3 months. And when I asked them for another pair, they said, no, it was your fault for wearing the sneakers so much. So I was like, all right, I'm just going to save some money, and I'm just going to start buying sneakers and selling them. So I was probably in 5th grade, and my parents were giving me like $5 to take the train and buy myself a snack. The train was like $150. Instead of paying for the train, I would hop the turnstile and get on the train for free, and I would just save the $5. Bought my first shoe for like 60 bucks, sold it to a friend for 65. I kept rinsing and repeating. And I've been reselling sneakers since I was 10 years old until I graduated physical therapy school. So on the left, I'm not sure if you'll be able to see the video, but it's essentially in my parents' where we were living. I've had $40,000 worth of sneakers. I also started selling candy bars while in high school on top of sneakers because it was just something that I can add on. I was already taking up people's lockers, so I had candy and sneakers in there. I had no idea what I wanted to do, even in physical therapy school. I was just on the right picture. This is my physical therapy apartment. I was just buying and selling sneakers all of the time on top of being at school. And I almost started brewing beer for a living because I was just burnt out with the profession. I'm glad I didn't because the first batch of beer was not good. So when we go into business, I always got to give a shout out to people that have inspired me. Charlie Munger, the late Charlie Munger, he passed away a couple of months ago. He was a partner of Warren Buffett, and he is probably the best thinker in the world. If you get anything out of this lecture, study Charlie Munger. He's got a book called Poor Charlie's Almanac. Read everything Charlie's ever put out. Listen to every single speech that he's ever given, and you're going to come out of this 10 times better person. The only reason I discovered Charlie Munger was because I read a book called The Almanac of Naval Ravikant. And that was the best book I read in 2022. And Naval keeps talking about this guy named Charlie Munger. So you do your due diligence, you read Charlie's books, and you're like, holy cow, these people are brilliant. Naval is someone that is a billionaire, but he wasn't always a billionaire. He grew up in India, immigrated to Queens, New York, where I'm from. And he lived in a single parent household. He was raised by his mom. And he documents all the lessons he's learned from when he had no money till when he became a billionaire. And it's probably one of the best books I've ever read. Paul Van Doren, he is the founder of Vans. And if you ever read the book Authentic, which is a model of Vans that they created, Paul talks about how, well, one, if we step back, Vans is truly about the people. And that's one of the reasons why they've gotten so big. Vans was the only shoe company that sold one shoe. So when they were selling sneakers to skateboarders, what they realized was skateboarders, depending on the tricks that you're doing, only one of your shoes would get ruined. So instead of Vans selling people a whole new, brand new pair of shoes, they just sold them one shoe at a time. And skateboarders love this. And that's when they really developed a niche and they started selling to skateboarders. And on our right is Michael and Amy Port. I just credit them because I went to their public speaking conference. Mike is an actor turned business coach turned public speaking coach. And that weekend changed my life. It just made me realize that one, it wasn't just a motivational type of weekend. He motivated me, but he also told me the steps that I needed to take to get better with speaking. So that weekend just changed my perspective, and it made me realize that I can do whatever the hell I want. I just got to get better, and I know I can get better. I know I can change. And I think that's one of the reasons why I've been able to see some degree of success. So if you guys ever interact with me in any shape or form, I do webinars all the time, free webinars. We run educational things. So that's one of the things I try to do for other coaches and clinicians. I start every single presentation with a quote, and I end every single presentation with a quote. If you're unfamiliar with Nipsey Hussle, he's a hip hop artist. He passed away, but he is probably one of the best rappers and one of my favorite rappers. His music is amazing, and he's got a lot of quotes relating to business, entrepreneurship. And this is one of my favorite quotes. He says, "I want every penny that's mine, nothing more, nothing less. I don't want a penny more or a penny less." And I say that's a good way to look at it. I don't want any shine success that ain't mine. I just want all of mine. And I tell a lot of people that I, coach from a business perspective, coach from a physical therapy perspective. I'm like, you just really need to have really good habits because eventually you're going to regress to the mean, right? There's people with really shitty habits and maybe they see some success, but eventually they're going to regress to the means of their habits. And if you have really bad habits, you're probably going to have a terrible outcome. And you're going to know people that have really great habits and they're not seeing success. But the longer that you stay having good habits, the more likely you're going to regress to the mean. And if you have good habits, you're on average going to see some degree of success, and you're on average going to see some good results. So this is what I think about when Nipsey said this is, remember that you're always going to fall to the level of your systems, which is something that James Clear says. So let's get into it all. When you start your career, on the left side, you have a lot of this. You have a lot of time. What you don't have a lot of when you start your career is a lot of money. So what typically happens as you start to progress is, as you start to excel at what you do, you start to lose a lot of your time, but what you lose in time, you gain in money. So the goal in the beginning of your career is to leverage your time to make yourself valuable so that you can make more money. And then you're going to leverage your money so that you can get back your time. And the first thing that we want to talk about is levels of leverage. If you're unfamiliar with the gentleman to the right, it's Meek Mills, and he's got a song called Levels. And there's 5 different levels that you got to think about. The first level is going to be leverage your time for someone else. If you're a staff physical therapist, you're working for another company, you're leveraging your time for somebody else. You're seeing a patient, you're billing codes. All of that company is just using your time to make money. Eventually, you're going to get to the point where they notice that you do a really good job, you maintain your patient caseload, you get really great outcomes. And if you're not happy there, if you're not happy just being a staff physical therapist, you might talk to the owner of the clinic and say, hey, I've been leveraging my time, but I know I can do so much more than that. How about if I increase the profits of this clinic? How about if I got us 10 to 20 more leads per month? Can I get a bonus? Now you're starting to leverage your value for someone else. It's not about just your time commitment, but now you're able to do more. You're able to bring more to the table, so you want more from that. And this is where someone might become a clinic director. So if you're a staff physical therapist and you're doing everything you want, but you're not financially satisfied, or maybe you're just not happy where you're at, don't be afraid to talk to the director, the owner of your clinic, and say, hey, I want more roles and responsibility. If you take more risk, you should get more reward. Now, if you're a clinic director and you're doing all this stuff for another clinic and you're like, hey, I'm not really that happy with where I'm at, well, you're going to do everything that you've done for the clinic and do it for yourself. And this is when you start to open up your own clinic. You're going to leverage your time and value for yourself. And this might be where a lot of people end. There's people that just are solopreneurs, is what we call it. They just start a business and they're the only employee of the business, and they just leverage their own time and their own value that they can create. And if you're happy here, you enjoy the money that you're making, you've got some good work-life balance, perfect. Stop there. You've only got to pull the third lever and you're good to go. Some people are like, hey, I want to grow. Like, I'm seeing tons of momentum. What happens then is when you leverage your own time and value as much as you can, what you're going to do is you're going to end up leveraging you're going to leverage someone else's time and value. And this is when you start to hire employees. The goal with the levels of leverage is to make sure that you maximize it before you move on to the next thing. Because if you can't even leverage your time, if you can't get people to stay on your schedule, if you can't get people to deliver, if you can't deliver good outcomes to people, you're not going to be able to do it for yourself. If someone can't even leverage your time and get value out of it, chances are you're not going to be able to do it yourself. So as long as you keep checking everything along the way, you have a proof of concept, is what we call it. And if you're leveraging someone else's time and value, you're still not happy where you're at, you can leverage software. And for me, software is anything that you can create once that has infinite leverage, right? If I create a lower body mobility program and I charge $50 for it, whether one person buys it or 100 people buy it, it doesn't matter. The work's done already. I have unlimited leverage there. If 1,000 people buy a $50 program, perfect. It's the same amount of time that I have to dedicate it to it if one person bought it. So a way that I've done that is I've leveraged time and value for myself. I've hired other people, and I've built a mentorship and Con Ed business out of everything that we've been doing. So one thing you might be thinking to yourself, it's like, how do you leverage your time? The first thing I always put is travel, right? And I think it's a super important thing. Before I got into physical therapy school, I backpacked Europe. After I graduated from physical therapy school, I backpacked Europe. And it's good to see the world, because you'll realize that what you do and who you are, it's not that important. The world's humongous, and you just become more in tune with everything around you, and you start to realize what you want. There's certain things that travel does to you that you can't get anywhere else. Other things to do, read books. And this can be books related to the profession. This can be books that you're reading for fun. But I think traveling and reading books just allow you to have conversations with a ton of people. There's just a lot of random facts that I've been able to learn through books and traveling that I can always strike up a conversation with patients. And if you understand clinical care, therapeutic alliance and developing rapport is one, a huge part of the healing process, and it creates buy-in so that they actually take you seriously and carry on with the plan of care outside of the clinic or gym. Have a hobby. There are so many people that start a physical therapy practice and they're not even in a community, right? Are you a CrossFit athlete? Do you like to do jiu-jitsu? Maybe you're part of a run club. You can market yourself. If you have time to take on new clients, you have time to market yourself. This means creating content. This means knocking on doors, going to gyms, being a part of something, showing up to events. You can develop your craft. And this is where you're going to spend a lot of your time. Watch some Netflix. You know, I couldn't tell you how many times, just the fact that I watch Love is Blind, I can relate to so many of my patients. And they're not always the females that I can relate to. So many dudes love watching Love is Blind as well. You can get yourself some results. If you're learning a new training methodology or a new rehab methodology, can you do those things yourself? Then you can document the process of you getting yourself some results. Other things to check off after you've done the latter, the former, is learn from people outside your industry. And this is where you really start to make an impact. Physical therapy, rehab, training, health and fitness can feel like an echo chamber sometimes. And the value that you bring to the table, you might not realize until you talk to people that aren't in your profession. When I go to like these entrepreneurial events, people are so happy to hear that I'm a physical therapist, because I'm like, wow, you've been dealing with stuff for so long that I could probably help you out with. Take continuing education, build relationships, make friends, spend some time actually thinking. Life goes by so quick and we try to fill every part of our calendar with something. And if we don't fill it with something, we're just mindlessly scrolling social media. How often do we just sit on a train? I'm from New York City, so we sit on a train to commute to work, or maybe you're commuting by car and you just reflect on the day. Hey, what did I do good? What could I have done better? I really like the way I communicated with XYZ to Sally. I think with Bill, I could have done this exercise slightly different. But what new grads don't typically do is actually think about what they've implemented and how they can get better. And how to know when you can leverage your value. When you've got more people that want to work with you that you don't have enough time to fulfill, right? If every single person that comes into the clinic that you're working at is, you know, dying to see you and they don't want to be put on someone else's schedule, you start to realize that your time is actually valuable and you can do more than just fulfill sessions and bill units. And that's where you start to go into the next lever. So when I talk about books, I'll tell you straight up, I don't put a price on a book. If I think a book is going to benefit me, I buy it. This is 2 windowsills in my 700 square foot apartment, 2 different bookshelves. Every single book on the right, I've read. I probably read about half the books on the left, but this is what it takes. I think as an entrepreneur and people in general, they're so afraid to identify with something that's different than themselves. I'm not someone that's read books a ton. I've applied to 20 physical therapy schools. I've only got 1 interview, happened to be University of St. Augustine. I graduated with like a 2.7. So I had graduated at 2.7 from undergrad. So I had to retake a bunch of classes. I was in academic probation twice. And I don't think I actually read a book until I was taking Neuromuscular 1. My professor was like, hey, you should read this book called The Brain That Changes Itself. And it was the first time that I enjoyed reading. And since then I've been hooked, because every single book that I've read, I've at least been able to take at least one thing out of them that significantly improved my life, you know, helped me cope with my anxiety, my depression, or it's taught me something like public speaking, or it's given me a different perspective on things related to physical therapy, you know, reading books about pain science, reading books about biomechanics, sprint training, etc. If you can do anything, it's enjoy the process of learning and you'll go really, really far. So I graduated in August 2019. September 2019, I had $115.43 in my bank account with over 10 grand in credit card debt after graduating from PT school. A majority of the debt came from signing up for continuing education courses and buying books. My classmates thought I was ridiculous for this, but I knew what was being taught in school was not going to prepare me for the real world. There's an elephant in the room, right? And we have to pass an exam that's based on dated evidence. And there's a lot of times professors, they almost have to sneak in these clinical nuggets, but they still have to teach us the stuff that's like outdated. And I thought it was ridiculous, but some of the things that are on the MBTE are things I would never utilize, and they're based on such outdated narratives and bad research. So once I realized that it wasn't going to help me in the real world, I started looking at really successful physical therapists, seeing what courses they were taking, who they were learning from, and I just started taking courses as a student. September 2020, pandemic happened, bad news. Still only had $1,625.49 in my bank account. 425, you factor in that to pay $1,200 in rent. Good news is I had no more credit card debt. I was learning a ton. I joined multiple mentorships and I went to a lot of weekend courses. And this is just like a snippet of some of the things that I've taken. Just a little bit of everything: kettlebells, barbells, sprint training stuff, respiration stuff, ACL courses, everything under the sun, specific stuff for runners, you name it, I've taken it. And I'm continuing to learn. Even at this moment in time, it's like there's so much to learn, and there's so many great practitioners, coaches, clinicians that will make you so good at what you do. And I'll talk about why that's important in a sec. So my story: on the left, I graduated from the University of St. Augustine. I got my first job at Reload Physical Therapy, and it was my dream job. And a big part of why I'm successful is because I got that job. But the job at that time, there were a lot of things that were tough. They had taken over a huge lease in New York City. I was working a ton. So at that time, before I left, I was seeing close to 35 to 40 patients a week. That might not seem like a lot, but when every single one of those sessions are one-on-one, that's a ton. When I joined the company, I rebuilt the website twice. I wrote blogs for the company. I was networking with other trainers and people in the community. I was taking sales calls. I did the online program because we were managing over 80 athletes doing our online kettlebell programming. I did youth athletic development on the weekends. And if you're wondering how I found time for everything, I woke up at 4 a.m. in the morning and I would walk my dog because I was still trying to contribute to the household. After I walked my dog, I would watch lectures for an hour, read books on the way to the work, and I would just work. And I did that for about 2 years, to the point that I was just like, I was so stressed. I remember my wife, I would just get home and I would pass out in our beanbag. I was probably working 80 to 90 hours a week. You know, I built the exercise library, you name it, I did it for the company, to the point that when I actually did start my own practice, people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm starting my own practice. Like, don't you already have a practice? I'm like, it's not my practice, it's someone else's. But I pulled every single lever I could and I wasn't happy. And glad that you guys are from Austin. I hopefully you guys have been to Terry Black's barbecue, but this is where my life changed. So early August 2019, early August 2021, a buddy of mine has a birthday weekend in Austin, Texas. And he's someone that's not a physical therapist. He's a trainer. He's very successful. And that whole weekend, I was just surrounded by entrepreneurs. And we go to Terry Black's and my life changed. That picture is the spread that we got at Terry Black's. Amazing beef ribs, roasted turkey, brisket. The sides there are phenomenal. And I didn't eat any of it. I took this picture of Christy holding on to the 2 drinks. I took like a small bite of something and I was just off. And Christy looks at me and she's like, what the hell is going on? And I'm like, I'm just gonna step outside. Can you get this to go? Because I don't feel great. I step outside and Christy comes out with a food pack and she's like, what's wrong? And I'm just bursting in tears. And remember, at that time, I'm working like 80 hours a week. This is the first time that I've had time to breathe, to take a break. And I was just telling her, like, I'm so burnt out. I can't do this anymore. I'm so exhausted. I'm going to jump ship. Like, I'm not going to work with them anymore. We're going to start our own thing. And that's when we started Moment Physical Therapy and Performance. The reasoning behind Moment is because we're actually going to start a beer company called Moment Brewing Company. And I wanted to name beers after very significant moments in life so people knew exactly what to get at the supermarket. If you had a buddy that was going to move into a new apartment, it's like, okay, moving into a new apartment, Pilsner. If you knew your son was going to graduate, it's like, hey, my son is graduating, summer ale, etc. So now it's like, hey, if I go to a supermarket and I don't know what beer to buy, because that's the problem I used to have, well, they're giving me exact moments of when I need to drink these beers. The beer never worked out, but we ended up making Moment Physical Therapy and Performance. So you're probably wondering why I got a sleep symbol on the screen. It's because the first time that I was a quote unquote entrepreneur, I fell asleep. I had to figure out, what kind of, uh, whether I needed a LLC or PLC or PC, just these professional entities. I couldn't figure out which one to get. I was reading a bunch of articles and I was probably like 15 minutes in and I fell asleep. I just couldn't fathom reading about this stuff. And the reason why is because I consider myself an artist. I'm not a business person by trade. Sure, I sold a bunch of sneakers when I was younger and I did all the way up until physical therapy school, but I've just focused on becoming a good physical therapist in the past couple of years. I did not focus on becoming an entrepreneur. Yeah, I don't jump out of bed in the morning like, oh man, how's our bookkeeping looking like? Like I jump out of bed in the morning because I'm excited about helping people. I'm excited about learning about movement, rehab, performance training, all of those things. But it ends up working out. But September 2021, that's when we officially started our practice. I had $250 in my bank account after I quit my dream job to start Moment PTP. I had no idea I was quitting, but I was burnt out. I had nothing except my skill set. Fast forward 2 months, I built a full caseload. Fast forward 3 months, I filled up Christie's. And this is all out of network, cash pay physical therapy. And that's when I decided to start Moment Education, which is our continuing education company. On November, I just pretty much said, hey, we are able to fill up 2 schedules. And I didn't do much marketing at that time. I was just posting stuff on social media. Every success that we've seen has been through word of mouth because we've been able to deliver an unbelievable service. I'm going to teach you my exact framework, how I get people from debilitating pain to high performance. If you're interested, drop your email here and I'm going to include you into a newsletter. We launched Moment Education in January 2022, and we have about 20 to 30 people join every single quarter. Now we've got over 200 physical therapists, chiropractors, coaches, and clinicians throughout the world that we're mentoring that have gone through what we do. And this is how we've hired our 2 full-time physical therapists currently. So the biggest mistake I see new grads make, again, when we first started Moment Physical Therapy, and even before that, I would probably have 5 to 10 phone calls or coffees with miscellaneous people, just talking to them, getting to know them. And the people that saw the most success were the people that focused on their product. If you put the cart before the horse, which is if you don't get good at what you do before you try to sell your service, you're just not going to see success. A lot of people don't even have an actual framework. They don't even know what they're capable of. They maybe can help people in the early stages of rehab, but they have no idea how to scale things to higher performance. And that's really, really tough because 10,000 physical therapists enter the profession every single year. And if you can't differentiate yourself from the 10,000 physical therapists, well, you have no leverage. But if you have all the different skill sets, if you can deliver a service or an outcome that no one else can, then you have leverage. But for the most part, too many physical therapists put the cart before the horse. They think that just because they graduated with a doctorate of physical therapy, that they're entitled to something. And that just can't be further from the truth. You need to set yourself apart. You need to continuously make yourself more valuable. Because what I always say is, if you package poop, it doesn't matter how nice the packaging is. Because once you open the package, it's still poop, right? Like you can be so good at marketing, but if your service, if your product, which is your clinical skill set, if it's not good, there's no amount of marketing that's going to solve for that. And one of the easiest ways to build a business is to change people's lives. Because if you change people's lives, if they couldn't get an outcome in 4 of the clinics, the majority of people that come to see us, they've been to multiple physical therapists, chiropractors, surgeons, physicians, trainers, etc. They've done all these fancy 3-letter acronym, certifications that people have taken, and they still can't get a result. But they come to us and they're finally able to get out of pain and do things they haven't been able to do in a long time. Well, they're going to tell all their friends about us. And that's why I always say, don't put the cart before the horse. See, get so good at what you do, because the easiest business to build is the business where you change other people's lives. So when we first started our practice, I was super nervous. I posted up on Instagram. I'm like, hey, I'm going to be starting my own practice. If you want to work with us, here is this link. You can schedule a call here. And within 15 minutes, I get an email. And hopefully one of you guys get to experience this in the future, because it's the best feeling ever. You build your practice. You allow people to submit an inquiry through your website. And for us, we built our website through Squarespace, and Squarespace says within 15 minutes, you've got an inquiry, someone's interested in working with you. And I was like, this has got to be a fluke because there's no way that it happens within 15 minutes. Lo and behold, every single day we were getting inquiries. And it's like, hey, you work with my friend, or hey, I've been following you for a while and I love that you're starting your own thing. I actually need your service. Or hey, I heard of you through another trainer, etc. But all of the work of building the leverage prior allowed me to get continuous inquiries. So lessons learned within the first year of business: hire a coach immediately, ideally one with skin in the game. You don't want your business coach, you don't want his only business to be teaching you about business. Ideally, you're working with a business coach that is actively running a practice, that actively has a business, that's not just teaching you how to run a business. And if they're only teaching you how to run a business, they better have a track record of exiting previous businesses related to physical therapy, training, etc. I've had multiple coaches in the past, people that have run successful businesses in physical therapy, people that have scaled training businesses, people that have scaled online businesses, people that have scaled educational businesses. I just look for someone that is where I want to be. I consume every single content that they've ever produced. And if it's really good content, because content should deliver value, then I'll pay for their services. Have an emergency fund saved up, 3 to 6 months of expenses. Don't be like me. When I tell you that I was $10,000 in credit card debt, don't do that, right? Don't be like me. If I could do it all over again, I would have 3 to 6 months of expenses saved prior to starting. Develop a script for anything that has to be said multiple times, AKA your discovery calls and sales. When we run our discovery calls, I follow a very specific script, and I'll break down what that script is. It's literally what we do word for word when someone wants to schedule a call and work with us. Carve out your exact customer journey from discovery call to discharge or continuity. What you're gonna find is people like to be guided. So they wanna know what it looks like. Hey, when you come in to work with Moment, within that first session, we're gonna tell you exactly what's going on, and we're gonna send you a recap email that's gonna outline everything that we talked about within that session, and you're gonna get a program. Every subsequent session, that program is gonna get updated. Typically, we see our clients once a week for the first 4 to 6 sessions, and afterwards, we see them every other week until they're discharged. If you are at the point where you're about to get discharged and you're unsure of what to do afterwards, don't worry. If you have a hard time finding a trainer closer to you, we can connect you with people. That allows us to build community. If you're like, hey, no one's been able to get me the outcome that you've delivered right now, how do I continue to work with you? We program for people on an ongoing basis. So this is how it works when you're working with us. You should have this all thought out, so you're not like, maybe I'll see you twice next week. No, you should know exactly every step of the way. And other things, you should find out what your strengths are. Some people are good at marketing, people are good at sales, some people are good at building out processes. You should start to figure out what your strengths are, because whatever your weaknesses are, you should hire for that. We did pretty well in business. We were part of a mastermind group that mentored over 1,000 physical therapy chiropractic clinics in the past. Their previous record for hitting a annual revenue was 36 months. We hit that same annual revenue and broke the record and did it in 18 months, so in half the time. The funny part was when you're in a room with 200 something physical therapists and chiropractors, and they're all like, hey, what's your secret? What's your sales? What kind of workshops are you running? All I told them was, I invest so much in my education. I invest so much in the product. I would make sure that every single person that comes through their door, their life changes. That's how we've been able to scale our practice and do so really, really quickly. People looked at us like, that can't be it. But I'm telling you right now, one of the biggest reasons why we've been able to see success is because we're ruthless with developing ourselves and the practitioners in our team. So the problem every single entrepreneur will eventually face. Sure, I had a lot of success monetarily, but I barely saw my friends and my parents. I did not consistently train. I went through burnout. I literally couldn't do anything besides lay on my couch, watch some random documentaries on Netflix while eating gummy worms. I had a profound realization that my schedule was completely out of control. Our first full-time employee left. Something needed to change because my life was not sustainable. So lessons learned during the second year of business. I started to take my own time seriously. So there's a lot of things I don't do anymore. I typically don't take calls after 5 p.m. I used to take discovery calls anytime. If someone was interested in working with us, I'll take a call on Sunday morning. Now we don't take any calls on a weekend, and I typically don't take any calls after 5 p.m. Things like this, I always am down to do because I truly believe in giving back into the profession. When you guys are navigating being professionals, there's going to be a ton of people that you network with that have taken time out of your day. And all you want to do is what I call being a good ancestor. Pay it forward to the next generation. I created some non-negotiables in my calendar. Every Friday and Saturday, Christy and I go on a date. Every Sunday, Oliver gets the longest walk of his life, and we go to a coffee shop and we spend the morning together. That's a non-negotiable. And once a month, I try to take Oliver on an adventure. That's my puggo. I'll take him somewhere that he hasn't been in a long time or he hasn't been at all. This usually means driving to obscure places in New York City and walking him, giving him some new sense. But put some non-negotiables in your calendar, right? No matter what, for the most part, if me and Christy are in the same location, Friday and Saturday, we go on a date. Sunday, take Oliver on a nice morning walk. Gave myself time to have nothing planned. So this is just white space. Don't fill up your calendars for everything. Just sit and think about things. I planned everything around my personal health. So now I run 30 miles a week and I strength train 3 to 4 times a week. And that's important to me. It's like I gotta train. Going on your 80-20 of what's making you successful. One of the reasons that I've been able to have some success is I think I've gotten pretty good at communication and creating content. So 80% of my results come from 20% of my effort, which is communication, public speaking, and creating content. So if 80% of my results only comes from 20% of my effort into this, why don't I put 80% of my effort into that? And that's what I started to do. I hired someone, my best friend, to be my videographer. I've doubled down on other courses to help me get better at writing. And I've taken and traveled for public speaking stuff. And I'm just trying to improve on the things that's already made me successful. And then I just focused on one thing at a time. When you get into business, people have these unreal checklists. But when you zoom out, there's one thing usually that needs to get done. And if you get that thing done for the day, the rest of the day should be a win. So I try to focus on one thing a day. And if I can dedicate 15 minutes, beautiful. I'm going to keep building that muscle until I can dedicate 30 minutes. Then I can dedicate an hour. But usually there's only one thing that you need to focus on to move your business forward. And that's one of the biggest tips that I got from one of my coaches. So where we are at currently, I'm trying to streamline every single standard operating procedure in our practice. If something has to get done more than once, you should create a system around it. Creating a marketing strategy that we can utilize for more predictable lead flow. So yes, I've relied heavily on social media, word of mouth, building local relationships. One thing that I'm doubling down on is getting people onto a newsletter so that I can market and nurture them over time through that newsletter. I'm focusing on becoming a better leader. I feel like I could do a better job of leading our team and being there for them. I think I do a good job of leading by example, but not communicating certain things, which is the next point, developing a North Star. Like, why the hell are we all doing this? So with Moment Physical Therapy and Performance, our mission is to make sure that we create an environment where physical therapists feel supported in their growth. They have great work-life balance and they're paid in the top 1% so that if they're treated right, every patient that comes to their door gets a physical therapist that isn't burnt out, that is motivated, that wants to help them. And that's our goal. And with Moment Education, we just want to help physical therapists, chiropractors, and trainers build a career of their dreams. So that's part of being a leader, help others feel a part of the journey. And I want to carve out what a physical therapist journey looks like the same way that we focus on the patient journey. So as we're now growing as a team, it's less about just being a staff physical therapist. I want more opportunities. How do we get someone to become a clinic director? How do we get someone to be a part of our education process? And those are all things that we're working on. So here are the main things you have to focus on in business: marketing, sales, and operations. Marketing 101. This is a hot dog stand. This typically works best when we can all see each other, but let's say that I let you guys have anything for your hot dog stand. You can unmute yourself. We're in a competition. I've got a hot dog stand. You guys have got a hot dog stand. How do you beat me? What do you guys need in your hot dog stand? Just name some stuff.
Offer a combo meal or extra drinks.
There you go. Okay, that's pretty good. Got combo meal with a drink.
Some high quality ketchup and mustard.
Nice.
Condiments, baby. We need condiments. What else we got?
A story.
A story. Okay, we're digging deeper now. What else?
Some free merch.
Free merch. You got that at moment. That's good. Let's go for two more.
Follow the social media and get a buy one get one free for next time.
Let's go. We got deals going.
Some sort of like point
can't believe no-
system.
Oh, that's good too. I can't believe no one talked about the bun. Like we got to get
I was
good
gonna say
bun.
different bread options. Yeah.
Potato bread. Come on. All right. But I would beat you guys because the only thing that I would want is a starving crowd, right? Like you can have all of those features, but if I just had one thing for a hot dog stand, I just want hungry people. If I have hungry people, I'm going to have a successful hot dog stand. And that's marketing 101. There's 4 different tiers. Tier 1, people that have money and want what you're selling. This is like golden. If you can market to people that have money and want what you're selling, you're amazing, right? This is like people that are hungry and you have money to buy a hot dog. It's like you're going to be successful. Tier 2, people that don't have money but want what you're selling. Maybe the person that you're marketing to is making ends meet, but they're super hungry and they need a hot dog. Well, if they see the value in buying a hot dog, they're eventually going to give you your money, right? This is tier 2 because it's easier to sell to someone that actually wants what you're selling, but they quote unquote don't have money. And I say quote unquote don't have money is because they usually tell you they don't have money when they don't understand the value that you're delivering. Tier 3 is people that have money, but they don't want what you're selling. Like this is hard to market to. They don't want what you're selling. They might have money, but they don't want what you're selling. In relation to the hot dog stand, maybe they're vegetarian or vegan. They don't even want what you're selling, but they have money. And tier 4 is like people that don't have money and don't want what you're selling. Maybe they're a vegan or vegetarian, they have no money at all. Tier 3 is maybe like, okay, maybe they'll eat meat once a month every now and then. Tier 4 is like, I never eat meat and it doesn't even matter. I don't even have money to buy your stuff. Tier 4 is like, you don't even want to do this. Think about this when you start to figure out what your niche is, right? Like we work with a ton of people that have been screwed by the healthcare system. Everything that we say in our marketing, it's like, have you had chronic nagging injuries? Have you seen multiple healthcare providers? I try to say things like debilitating. You know, it's no coincidence that I use words like chronic, nagging, debilitating, because this is how people often describe their pain to us when we're talking to them on the phone. So it's like those people usually have, they're either people that have money or they don't have money, but for sure they want what we're selling. Other people that have like never seen a physical therapist before, I have a hard time selling to them because they don't understand that what we do is so different and high value. So our tier 1 and tier 2 is just people that are in chronic debilitating pain. They've never seen success anywhere else. I can help them. You have active goals, I can help you. Tier 3, tier 4 is people that don't even prioritize their health. They don't even understand what physical therapists are capable of. Your goal is to market to people that actually want your service. So for us, we charge $299 for our first session, and then follow-ups are $250. It's not cheap, and it's definitely something my parents would have never paid for growing up because we didn't even have that kind of money. But there's people that think that it's a steal. There's people that I've worked with that they're like, you got to raise your rates. What you do is so valuable. I've worked with someone on telehealth before. He's someone that was a CEO of a company. He exited for millions. And he was dealing with bilateral knee pain. His orthopedic surgeon told him that he needs to get a bilateral knee replacement. And he could barely walk down the stairs. I worked with him virtually. We got him to the point that he was continuously hopping, doing plyometrics, and he got back to playing tennis 3 to 4 times a week. And he went back to his orthopedic surgeon and he's like, Andy, I can't wait to go to this appointment because when he asked me how I'm doing, I'm just going to jump up and down for him. And the orthopedic surgeon wasn't there. And the physician's assistant just basically said, do you need an increase in your meds? Say, oh, I don't need meds anymore. Like, oh, that's awesome. All right, we'll see you whenever you need us again. And I'm going to charge you $300 for a visit, right? Like there's people that literally get billed an obscene amount to see an orthopedic surgeon or some sort of healthcare provider that isn't even helping them and charging them hundreds. Whereas, you know, people that work with you, if you can get them an outcome, you can't even put a price on things like that. You can't even put a price on someone being able to cross the marathon line or someone being able to play tennis again when they've been in debilitating pain. They couldn't even walk down the stairs. So tier 1, and if you can't find a tier 1 niche, go for tier 2. But this is what you want to be at. Sales 101. Sell me this pen. Can someone sell me this pen? What are we thinking when we're trying to sell a pen? Can you tell me about this pen that you got to sell me? Let's go for like 3 inputs. How would you sell this pen to me?
You need it.
That's pretty good. I like it. Aggressive. It can work sometimes.
Why do you
What-
want to buy the pen?
There you go. Right? We're getting warmer. Like, we got to figure out if the person actually needs our service. So this is how we take our sales calls. First thing you're going to do is you're going to develop rapport. Don't talk and go right into the nitty gritty of the conversation. Just like, hey, how's it going? What are you up to? How's your day going so far? If I am hearing something in the background, oh, sounds kind of loud. Where are you at? Or what are you doing today? Or what have you got planned for today? Whatever it is, just try to start a conversation and develop rapport for like the first minute. From there, we go into the pre-frame, and this is where the money is. I need to make sure that the person is a good fit for what we do, and I'm letting them know that. And we call that qualifying a lead. If I have someone coming in, let's say his name is John, say, hey, John, listen, I appreciate you for taking the time out to get on this call. For us, we always get on the discovery call because we want to make sure that what you're dealing with is something that we've seen before and can provide you long-term relief with. If it's something that we can't help you with, I'm going to try my best to direct you to the appropriate healthcare provider so that you can get the outcome that you're looking for. But if it's something that I can help you with, I'll talk to you about the logistics of how we work. How does that sound? Sounds great. Awesome. Tell me your story. And that's when we start to identify the problem. Maybe they've been dealing with back pain. Maybe they've been dealing with knee pain. Maybe they had a surgery. Have they seen other physical therapists before? What have you tried before in the past? What are you frustrated with, right? So maybe they've seen other physical therapists, but they're like, hey, I go into this cookie cutter clinic and I feel like I'm in a factory. It's me and 3 other people getting treated at the same time. And I don't feel like I'm making any progress. Whatever the frustration is, like, oh, it's so easy. I feel like I'm not even doing anything. I can run through this program myself. Feels like I'm getting babysat. And from there, you're gonna identify the ideal outcome. My bad, I wrote idea. But what's the ideal outcome? Like, what do you want to be able to do? And inevitably, you're gonna have people to say, I just want to get out of pain. I'm like, I know, but I want you to dream bigger, right? Like, if pain was out of the equation, what's something that you want to be able to do? Another question I like to ask is like, what's something that if you did, you wouldn't even think about this injury anymore? How do you know you've overcome this injury? If you've been dealing with back pain, how do you know that you're overcoming this injury? Like, how much, if I'm working with a CrossFitter, how much do you need to deadlift? If I'm working with someone that is like a runner, you know, what kind of pace do you need to be able to get up to so that you don't even think about this injury anymore? I want to help you do something that you've never been able to do before. And once I can understand a person's problem, frustration, and their ideal outcome, I can position the solution. So after I've listened to them talk a little bit, I'm like, hey, you know, what you're dealing with is something that we help people with all of the time. Do you mind if I tell you a little bit more about what we do? Perfect. Well, again, I told you guys my previous customer journey, right? It's like, well, within the first session, when you come into the session, you're going to meet your physical therapist. And physical therapists can tell you exactly what's going on. And listen, if their frustration before was that they see 4 people within an hour, you're going to be completely one-on-one with your physical therapist the whole time. If their frustration before was the fact that the program is too easy, you're going to get a standard, you're going to get your baseline program within the first session. And every subsequent session, that program is going to get progressed, right? Your goal was to position the solution and also attach the frustration to it, how you're solving everything. And what you're going to say afterwards is, how does that sound? And there's this psychology that happens when people are like, wow, they actually listened to me. And I told them my problems and they're giving me the actual solution. Human beings love to stay consistent. So if you tell someone that you can solve their problems and you tell them, hey, this is what it's going to cost. How does that sound? When would you like to schedule a session? If human beings are inconsistent, it feels weird. So if you're like, I can help you. Can I tell you a little bit more about what we do? Yes. This is how we work. This is how we're going to solve your problems. How does that sound? Does that sound good? Yes. You get them to say yes so many times, it's going to feel weird. It's going to create so much resistance to them saying no that they're more likely to schedule with you. But this is how we take a discovery call. Operations 101. I was very fortunate that we went to Mexico City for my honeymoon last September, and I got to attend one of the world's 50 best restaurants in the world. And it was an unbelievable experience. And this is how I think about everything from an operations perspective. 90% of restaurants are going to close because they suck. They don't try to get better. They don't even, you know, they even they don't even fulfill a craving. So the restaurant that we went to was a world-class Mexican restaurant. 90% of restaurants, they're not even as good as Taco Bell, right? They don't even like, they got nothing going for them. And it's a huge reason why a lot of companies and businesses will close, because they shouldn't even be doing what they're doing. 5% of restaurants are like good enough to get the job done, right? Maybe 5% of restaurants is like Taco Bell, or 5% of restaurants like your favorite, or one of the local taco joints. You're not like super excited to go there. You're not like, oh, I can't wait to get it. It's just like, it's convenient, it's there. I know that it's gonna fill my craving. And then 4% of restaurants, you know, I'm biased. I used to work at Chipotle. So 4% of restaurants like Chipotle. Like, I look forward to eating Chipotle every single day. Damn good. I got to tell you one thing. When we put out the lemons and limes in Chipotle, we used to wash them in vinegar before putting them out. Like, Chipotle is phenomenal. Or if you're not a Chipotle fan, it might be the Mexican restaurant locally that you always tell your friends about, right? Like 90% is absolute trash. 5% is good enough. It's convenient. 4%, it's like, I'm pretty excited to go there. And then 1%, it completely changes your perspective of what is possible with a restaurant. And that's what I got to attend. I went to a restaurant that completely changed my perspective on what was possible with a restaurant. We were guided, we stepped into the restaurant and I just sniffed the air and I'm like, Christy, you smell that? It smells amazing in here. They guided us to the bar, and it was a taco omakase restaurant. So we had like 10 individual tacos. The person was explaining every single thing without looking at anything. He was recommending the perfect stuff. There was like ninjas because they were picking up plates and napkins without us even saying anything. And the experience was just amazing. The decor was amazing. The ambiance was out of this world. And for dessert, they walk you to the garden. There's a fire outside and you have like 5 different desserts. It was the most amazing restaurant experience I've ever had. It completely changed my perspective. So 90% of physical therapy clinics should not even be open. These people don't even care about physical therapy. They're not passionate about physical therapy. 5% of physical therapy clinics are good. They get the job done. You know, they're not ultrasound and e-stim. They have some degree of like exercise knowledge and how to get people back to doing what they love. But these are usually the physical therapists that stop learning after 2 to 3 years. They keep doing the same thing that they've learned for the first 2 to 3 years of your career. 4% are physical therapists that continuously develop and get better. They're great. People are always recommending friends to them. And then 1% of physical therapists completely change someone's perspective of what was possible with physical therapy. This is not even just the delivery of the service, right? Like the outcome, it's like everything else. It's your behavior, it's your mood. It's when someone comes in, you introduce them to the staff, right? Say, oh, this is so-and-so, this is so-and-so. You completely change the experience of physical therapy. Our goal is to be here in the top 5%. A lot of your classmates will be here. Hopefully no one is here. But the reasoning behind that is because, again, like I said, there's 10,000 physical therapists that graduate every single year. And there's only more and more physical therapists graduating because there's so many new schools that are doing this. And what you're gonna see is that there's a bunch of insurance clinics now that are just having physical, one, you have to understand that there's whistleblowers that literally are saying how one person denied 10,000 claims within a day. How can you even look at 10,000 cases? Insurance is like a race to the bottom. And in New York City or heavily populated cities, what typically happens is clinics will bid for contracts. If, let's say, some insurance clinic was like, hey, we're going to offer you $100 for 4 units. Another clinic might be like, hey, we'll do it for 90. Another clinic will, hey, we'll do it for 80. And they just keep cutting each other until the point they're like, someone's like, hey, I'll do it for 40. And now in order to keep the clinic open, you have to see 4 people within an hour. And a lot of the problem that we have in physical therapy is a lot of physical therapy clinics are owned by private equity. They're not even owned by healthcare providers. So it's a race to the bottom. People keep cutting each other for contracts. So the only person that wins is the insurance because they pay you less. Clinics are now unable to provide the experience they want because physical therapists are required to see 4 people an hour. Patients don't win because the patient doesn't get the outcome that they deserve. During my second rotation, I was in a clinic where I was working with someone, a kid that was recovering from leukemia, teaching her how to run again, a factory worker that was dealing with thoracic outlet symptoms going down his right arm, a desk worker that was dealing with chronic pain. I forgot the fourth person. And that was all within an hour. I'm like, how do we do this? We can't. So in these situations, nobody wins besides the insurance company. And we see that because during a pandemic, insurance companies went up in value, which is ridiculous. So what's the goal? We have 10,000 physical therapists that graduate every single year. There's a book by Seth Godin called Purple Cow. And imagine you're driving in a highway in the fields and there's a bunch of cows. You wouldn't think anything of it. And then all of a sudden you see a purple cow and you're like, holy crap, that cow looks different. That's something I've never seen before. You catch someone's eye. And that's the goal. If there's 10,000 physical therapists that graduate every single year, your goal shouldn't be to be like everybody else. Your goal should be to invest in yourself, increase your value, and stack these, compound your skills. If you're just a physical therapist that graduates, that's one thing. You're still going to be able to help other people that don't have a physical therapy degree. But if you're a physical therapist that has continuously taken courses, got better at public speaking, got better at sales, not just to close, patients that need your service, but get better at sales so that you can sell your plan of care so people are excited to do the exercises that you're prescribing. If you understand things like economics, if you understand things like game theory, there's so many fields outside of physical therapy that are relevant to physical therapy. The only way to become a purple cow is to start to compound your skills. The more skills you compound, the more valuable you're going to become. But if you don't develop any skills, if you don't grow, if you don't invest in yourself, you'll never be a purple cow. You're going to be just like every other 10,000 physical therapists that graduates. And you're going to be wondering to yourself a couple of years down the line why you aren't where you want to be. And that's because you haven't invested in yourself. So to end, this is a quote from Warren Buffett: price is what you pay, value is what you get. If you have no leverage, if you can't deliver value, then you've got to compete for price. And if you compete for price, it's a race to the bottom. But if you compete for value, if you can deliver an outcome that no one else can deliver, you can charge whatever the hell you want. So let's answer some questions. What do you guys got? Sorry I talk so much.
Man, I feel like you've been very thorough, like incredibly so, with your presentation. This has been like one of the best I've ever attended. And also, as a fellow Brooklyn born and raised like sneakerhead, I'm also surrounded by like Supreme skate decks and sneakers. It's like, dude, I'm like, this is what I want to be.
I'll tell you right now, we're opening up a practice, and we're not opening up practice. We're opening up our own standalone space in New York City, and it's way too expensive. But it made sense. We found a space, and we're displaying stuff that are not very traditional physical therapy decorations. And one of them is a shoe dog book with a Murakami, Japanese modern artist, waffle. We're displaying skateboards. Yeah. So we're just putting a clinic together that's just different, right? I want people to step into the clinic and feel inspired to heal. Be happy to be there. It's like, I don't want to step in a clinic and see brown carpet, see ultrasound machines, see 50-pound dumbbells that are collecting dust. I want people to come in and feel like, holy shit, my life is going to change here. And that's the goal. But I love it. Like, don't give that up. Like, if you're uniquely you, if you love sports, if you like random stuff, be quirky, be authentic to who you are, because there's people out there that are just like you. And if you're true to who you are, you're going to attract those people. And what you're going to find when you guys start practicing is that your favorite patients or your favorite clients that you remember are just like yourself. So if you just be yourself, you're going to be okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you, Andy. Just to piggyback off of Tan, I mean, yeah, that was a pretty thorough presentation. And the one question I did have was regarding, like, how do you approach sales? Like in that private practice setting. I'm a new grad and I'm interviewing for a couple places. And as I'm interviewing for these private practice clinics, I'm noticing the importance they place on like sales and like conversions and like completions of plan of cares. And I don't know, it's just a little intimidating, but like the outline that you laid out as far as like identifying the problem, identifying the frustration was pretty helpful. So thank you.
No, for sure. I would say the first thing to think about, right? It's like you have to make sure that the person actually needs your service. Like when I was like, sell me this pen, and someone's like, why do you need a pen? I'm like, thank you. You guys get it, right? Like, does this person need your care? And are you valuable enough to deliver the outcome? Can you speak with conviction, right? If I work with a golfer and they're coming in with like lumbopelvic pain, and it's the same side that they're lacking a ton of hip internal rotation in, and you can restore the hip IR and retrain the golf pattern, speak with conviction that you can get them better. If I work with a runner and they haven't had a progressive plyometric pattern, a plyometric program before, I know that I can get them better, right? Like what input is this patient in front of me missing, and can I provide them that input? If I can, then let me speak with conviction. And that's what you need to do. You got to get so good at treatment. And that's what no one in business tells you. I've been a part of almost 10 masterminds, and no one has actually audited my clinical skills. And that doesn't make sense, because if you're selling shitty product, no one's going to want it. So Jose, the first thing I would do is just give yourself a break. You're a new grad physical therapist. No one's expecting you to be perfect. And if they are, they're a shitty boss and they're a shitty leader, right? You have to remember that your framework is going to get updated every single week because you're learning new things as a new grad. And over time, it's going to be every month. Over time, it's going to be every couple of months. Over time, it might be once a year. But your goal as a new grad is to learn, be a sponge, and be as good of a clinician as you can. And ideally, you find a clinic that supports you in being a good clinician. Because if they just look at sales numbers, but you can't speak with conviction because they actually haven't developed you as a clinician from the hard skills and a soft skills perspective, you're going to be in the wrong place. I would find a job that will develop you clinically and also teach you sales.
That's great advice. Thank you.
My pleasure.
I wanted to ask Andy, one of the things, I think one of my big points I try to instill into some of our students is to think outside the box, to be different, to be that purple cow. It looks like you started Moment Education not long after you started your therapy clinic, right?
Yeah, 4 months after.
4 months. That's so fascinating and interesting to me. Can you share a little bit about that process of like how long did you know you were going to do something like that that happened quickly?
Yeah, you know, as you start a business, one of the hardest things to do is hire really good therapists. And the only way that I know that a therapist is good is if I spend 12 weeks with them, right? So for our mentorship, we have 2 calls per week for 3 months. So there's 24 calls total. And then after the initial 3 months, they have 2 monthly calls. So it's almost 30 calls. And on top of that, we have guest lectures of industry experts, and we bring them in, we pay them. And this is people that are in the forefront of like sprint research, plyometrics, pain science, etc. We just bring in experts to lecture to our group. And I'm looking for outliers, people that are so motivated. You know, the 2 physical therapists in our team, they're very similar to myself. They've been burnt out in other practices. The only reason they were starting a practice was because they didn't even know that something like this existed. And they took courses and they worked on developing themselves as a student, which was very impressive. Like whenever I meet a student that's actively reading books, distilling research and stuff, I'm like, you're gonna be fine. Like you're gonna be good, because there's always someone looking for valuable therapists. So when we started that process, you know, when I said, hey, let's sell some hot dogs, what do we need? Someone's like, we need a story. And I'm like, yes, we need a story. So what's the story of Moment Education? Well, initially the story was the fact that we've been able to do something pretty meaningful within 4 months. And I don't know anyone else that's been able to fill up 2 caseloads within 4 months. So it's not that we have this special ad strategy. It's not that we're going to guarantee you $10,000 in the next 30 days. I'm just going to give you the most intensive clinical mentorship that you ever had. And by the end of 3 months, you're going to see yourself in a completely different light. And that's what we pitched. I'm going to show you exactly how we work with people day in and day out that constantly refer us to their friends and family, because that's the biggest compliment that you can get as a physical therapist, when a patient recommends their friends and family. And within the first quarter, it was the cheapest it's ever been. But I said, hey guys, I'm an open book. I want you guys to roast me. What can I do better? How can I improve this? Every single quarter, we just keep trying to improve it. To the point now, if you go to our testimonials page, we have like 80 testimonials now. People writing paragraphs, having videos. So our goal was not to like have everything prepared, just see if there's interest. If there's interest, then I can create something. If no one sent me an email, I wouldn't have bothered creating the education stuff, but we got 80 emails from that one prompt. And I didn't have a single thing. Once I collected 80 emails, I looked at Christy and I said, now we've got to create a mentorship. So we were driving to Michigan in December for Christmas. She drove 10 hours. I wrote on my laptop what the skeleton was going to be. I put down what I thought every single person needed to learn by the time they finished our mentorship. I created the mentorship week by week. So I didn't have all 12 weeks done before I launched the mentorship. I just needed to know that there was a product. And then from there, I just created the modules as we went. From there, I just refined it. And this is what we call product-led growth in like software. Instead of making sure that the product is perfect, that you can answer everybody's problems, just create the actual software, create the actual product, and then get the actual problems that you need to solve. Because what people tend to do is they try to make everything perfect and they try to account for every scenario, but some of these scenarios might never exist. So my goal was to release something immediately, get feedback from people that trust in what we do, and just continuously refine it and make it better over time.
Fascinating stuff, man. Thank you so much for coming on. It was very organized presentation, and a lot of really, really good, a wealth of information in there, and inspiring in the least, just to see the whole story, where you started and where you came from. So thank you so much for coming on tonight. We appreciate it.
it. And I just want to say, that's half the battle, right? Like just knowing that something like that is possible. Like I want to make it known that I'm not smart. I've been in academic probation twice in college. I got denied from 20 physical therapy schools. Like I'm not special. It takes me forever to read books sometimes. But what I think you could do is just understand that you can change, right? Understand that you can start to enjoy reading. Understand that you can get better at speaking. Understand that you can become a better clinician, that you can get better at sales. Develop a growth mindset. Where you are now, if you know that you can be better, that's all you need from this lecture. And from that first one of the first modules, the 4 people that have inspired myself from a business perspective, if you study those people, you're going to become a better person in general. So hopefully you guys got some nuggets. Jose, sorry, you had a question.
I was gonna say, with respect to your time, if I could ask just one more question.
I'm good, bro. I'm hyped. This presentation got me hyped. You guys are a great group, so I'm good to go.
I love that. That's how I feel after every one of these meetings. I'm always just like so amped, and I'm like, oh crap, it's like 10 o'clock. But Andy, so you mentioned working at Reload PT for a couple years. And you attributed that to, like, you went all in and you developed, yourself as a great clinician, as a great coach, and kind of started to build this business acumen. And then you realized that like these efforts weren't for me, or like the total gain wasn't for myself. Um, do you see yourself, like, if you could do it all over again, would you just have gone headfirst into Moment PT and do your own thing, or were those years like that crucial and like that experience and like making those mistakes for somebody else?
That's a great question. And one thing I'll say is earn the right to dream big. I think there's so many people out there that's like, dream big, dream big. I want you to dream small. I want you to dream slightly outside of your capabilities, reach those goals, and keep dreaming again, right? For me at that time, like if I went out on my own, there's no way that I would have been successful. And there's a couple of lessons I've learned there that I was fortunate to get that some of my colleagues did not get. And it's having someone to model yourself after, right? Ryan Chow is the owner of Reload Physical Therapy. He's my mentor. Still a great friend till this day. I message him happy birthday, check in with him, see how he's doing. That's my guy, right? And I owe him a lot. And one of the things that he showed me was he was ruthless with learning. Like when I tell you I've spent 200K on top of tuition, Ryan probably spent more than that. Ryan is constantly learning, constantly trying to get better. And, I see this guy work so hard and be so compassionate with patients, care so much about the profession. I was so fortunate to be surrounded by someone like him. And what new grads don't get typically is someone that they can model themselves after. If you can't find it within your clinic, try to find it online. Try to find someone that inspires you, because it is very easy to get burnt out. But to answer your question, I don't regret it one bit. There's no way that I would have had this opportunity unless I could show myself, unless I can give myself permission to dream big. If you can't do it for someone else, you're probably not going to be able to do it for yourself.
No, it makes sense. Thank you so much.
There's no risk when you do it for someone else, but there's a ton of risk when you do it for yourself.
Andy, do you mind if I ask one more question before?
You guys are good to go. Let's get it.
Yeah, I appreciate it. So I like a little context. Like for me, I'm in my third year of the Flex program, and I'm about to go out on clinicals and probably like midway through this term, so like in July. And so when I started the Flex program, I had worked in education for like 10 years, and I ended up moving into like educational coaching and consulting. And so I had my own business doing that, and I did that like the first year through the program, and then I ended up leaving that just so I could focus on school for about maybe like the past year and a half or so. And like where I find myself right now is like going on to clinicals, like I'm ready to start, like it opened up a lot of space because the Flex is nice in that, right? Like for someone who kept themselves busy, I feel like I have time, like you're talking about, to invest in myself, to invest in my education, academically, but also maybe outside of that. And so I'm also finding myself in a space where I want to start like actually applying the skills that I'm learning, right? And being with people, because I'm like so drowned in like the digital side of it, and being like when I go to the gym, like the other day, for example, I was with my mom, just helping her through things that I've kind of like I was applying things that we've done. It felt so good to do that. And so I'm at a space where after clinicals, I'll have about a year before I go on my other final terminal rotations. And so I want to do something, and I want to invest my time wisely while I'm in school and I have it. What do you recommend, whether it be like work-based or learning-based, that like someone in like that situation does so that we can improve? So I don't have to wait till I graduate to start to improve.
One of the best things that you can do as a physical therapy student is to, one, treat friends and family for free. And just to let you guys know, I still do that to this day. If I learn something new and I'm a little bit nervous about coaching things up, I invite friends and family, and I'll treat them for free because I need practice, I need reps. The other thing that is really, really useful is there's a couple of options. Become a personal trainer, become a group fitness instructor. Like those are two things I would recommend. Like if you can manage a group of people, that is like a skill that you never want to lose. And if you can take a one-on-one session and entertain the person the whole time, get them to buy in and stuff, and you also get to practice your reps, even like, you know, if you do group fitness, you can pull someone aside. It's like, hey, I saw this, like, these are some of the things that you might want to work on. Those two jobs allow you to deliver a ton of value. Third job, completely irrelevant to physical therapy, be a bartender. I think that you meet so many unique people as a bartender. You get exposed to so many different kind of personalities. Anything like service related, I think, is phenomenal. And I think if you work at a restaurant that really prioritizes service, like you learn so much. Years as a bartender, perfect, dude, you got it, right? And those are things that like no one can teach.
Thanks so much for that. I appreciate it. And to, follow up with everyone, it's been a great presentation.
Yeah. No, my pleasure. This isn't not like, hey, we have this presentation, don't ever talk to me again. If I can help in any way, you can rewatch the presentation at the end. I've got Andy@momentptp.com. We're not taking any students or anything right now, but if you need any help with stuff, navigating life after a student, navigating life before, practicing, just need a book recommendation. If I can help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out. The only thing that I ask is a couple of years down the line, pay it forward. If a school asks you to do a presentation, try your best to deliver a decent presentation. And Con Ed Rex, oh man, what's hot right now? I'm biased. I've got a horse in a race. It's Moment Education. But I'll tell you right now, it's like I've taken every single course and I've condensed it into something that it's kind of like the best hits. But if you want something right now that's completely free, let me throw this on. My buddy Matt McGinnis Watson and I were doing a free plyometric webinar. Matt is someone that's been doing plyometrics for 17 years. He's a competitive long jumper. His mentor has been studying plyometrics for 40 years. And he's going to talk about his whole system. And I'm going to talk about how I bridge the gap from rehab to that system. It's completely free. Sign up for the webinar and you get to learn from people that have some skin in the game.
That's
If you
awesome.
follow,
Thank you.
yeah, if you follow my Instagram, I'm always throwing book recommendations and shouting people out. I'm going to throw a couple of people right now that are phenomenal at what they do. Derek Hansen for sprinting, Lee Taft for multi-directional speed. This is people that you can look up on YouTube and get free content from. Fred Duncan for SNC, strength and conditioning. Oh man, Ryan Chow and Craig Levinson for rehab. Everyone should know who Lorimer Mosley is. He is a famous pain scientist. He studies pain. Chris Johnson, if you want to learn from, if you're interested in learning from runners. Chris Johnson. Matt McGinnis Watson, I said, for plyometrics. Exos, if you have a CSCS already. CSCS, if you don't have a CSCS. And that's a pretty good starting point. Gary Ward, if you want to learn about the foot. I've taken all of Gary's courses, super interesting. And all like the classic manual therapy courses are great. You know, I'm excited to hopefully attend Mulligan with mobilization at some point soon because I've been using the belt for mobs. But this is like a pretty good list, and these people will reference other people that are really good at what they do as well. That's a good list. Let's start there. If you follow these people on Instagram, find them. They've got a ton of free stuff on YouTube as well. It's phenomenal. And if you're worried about your career, read the book called The Long Game by Dory Clark. If you want a broad perspective on life in general, Almanac of Naval Ravikant. The Long Game is a macro perspective on career. Almanac of Naval Ravikant is a macro perspective on life. If you read those two books, your whole life changes.
Any other questions?
So this is like a personal question. I'm coming back to New York at around August. Mind if I shadow?
Yeah, just hit me up and we can set something up.
All right.
This is open season. If you guys are in New York City and I've got time, you know, shoot your shot. I'm always down to take students out to lunch, grab a coffee, and do whatever I can to deliver value. So.
All right, last question for me.
Yeah, what's up, Jose?
In the clinic, what's your favorite shoe to wear?
My favorite shoe to wear? Oh man, I don't wear a lot of different sneakers in a clinic. One of the things I've realized is, you know, we're all in like different stages of life. So like if I come in hot and I'm always flexing dope sneakers, my PTs will be like, man, what the hell, bro? Like you flexing on us and I'm rocking the same New Balance or the same kicks all the time. So I try to be mindful. Like in a clinic, we just rock moment gear. I wear running shoes, whatever I'm running to work in. I'm mindful of that because I don't want my physical therapist to think that like I'm somebody else. With that said, though, when I'm teaching, I'm always pulling up in Air Maxes, Jordans, all that stuff. I've got like, I think 400 something books here in this apartment. I've probably got 100 pairs of sneakers.
Hey Andy, thanks again for taking the time with us. I was curious as to how you landed on your pricing for your initial evals and like the follow-up visits. Have there been fluctuations at all?
Yeah, I initially started at like 150, and let's backtrack. If you say a price and it doesn't make your hands a little bit sweaty, you're not charging enough. That's one rule. Other things to consider is the 60 to 80%. If you're closing at 80% with your price, chances are you can increase your price and it'll probably drop down to like 60 to 70% closing rate. And you're going to work at selling your product better or developing your brand better or marketing better so that it gets closer to 80%. There's physical therapists that I coach and they're closing like 90%. And I'm like, you got to raise your price, right? Because it's way too high of a closing rate. Other things to consider, it's like where you're at, like we're in Manhattan, like $299 might seem ridiculous for someone that lives in like Idaho, but in New York City, people are like, it's New York. This is what happens. The flip side, I know people that charge $499, like, and once you're exposed to it, you're just like, I can't believe that world exists. Like before I graduated, I'm like, oh, collect a $50 copay. That's a lot. And I know colleagues that charge an insane amount. I've had people come to me that were assessed by a quote unquote back pain specialist for $2,000. And it was the worst assessment I've ever heard. Terrible narratives, nocebo the hell out of the patient that I was working with. And he didn't get any better from that session. So there's a lot of different ways to land on pricing, but I typically start there. What's my closing rate? And my hands getting a little bit sweaty? And what's the general average? If I'm in New York City and I charge $100, someone's going to think something's wrong with me. And I consider myself like a BMW, Mercedes-Benz. If you buy a underpriced Mercedes-Benz or BMW, you're like, what the hell is going on? Right? If I'm trying to deliver a high quality product, I got to justify the price.
Thank you, Andy. One last question for me, Ian here. How did you identify your business model? Did you always know like kind of, I just only want to do cash based, or have you ever considered like hybrid type of business model for your clinic?
I would consider hybrid, and I keep going back and forth with hybrid stuff. I'll be completely honest. There's a couple of things. One, I don't like to make up stories, right? Like if someone's feeling better, like I don't want to make up notes because I want to be able to sleep at night knowing that I'm clear, like I haven't committed any sort of fraud. Two, I remember I was working at another clinic and it was getting close to Christmas time and they reopened like a couple of cases from a year and a half ago. And I'm like, dude, it's Christmas. Like what the hell, right? So that's part of the thing for me. It's like, I want complete transparency. I don't want to hunt people down. And I try to be as honest as possible with people, right? Like you're not going to get some random bill 3 months from now. If the insurance revisits this claim a year from now, I'm not going to try to hunt you down for money. Like this is what you're paying. This is what you're going to get. I try to operate like that. With that said, I think there's a lot of great clinics that do hybrid. There's a lot of great clinics that do insurance based. There's no right answer. Everyone's going to have a different decision based off of their previous experiences, and writing notes leading up to Christmas pissed me off.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, thank you. I want to ask one more question. Do you have
What's up?
Do you have a favorite IPA?
A favorite IPA? Oh man. If you ever visit New York City, we have a place called Rockaway Brewing Company.
Okay.
And during the spring and summer, they have something called Hawaiian Pizza IPA. It's a pineapple flavored IPA. I don't think you can get this unless you're in New York City. But if you see a can with like a bunch of pigs flying with pineapples in their mouth, like, get
Okay.
it.
What's the brewer?
Rockaway Brewing Company.
Got it.
It is so good. But that's my favorite IPA by far.
Awesome. Cool. Well, thanks for sharing. And
My
thanks
pleasure.
again for coming on tonight. We got your contact information. I'm certain you'll hear from some of us. So
thank you guys for being receptive to everything. And again, just want to reiterate that if you guys need help with anything, just reach out to me. And the only thing I ask is you pay it forward in the future. So thank you guys for being so great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy.
Thank you, Andy. That was great.
Thanks so much.
Have a good night, guys.
Have a good
Have
night.
a good night.